The rain fell in sheets across the Olympic training facility in Okinawa. Lightning split the sky, illuminating a scene that would haunt everyone who witnessed it. Captain Ayaka Sato, 6 feet 2 inches of Olympic bronze medalist pride, knelt in the mud beside the pool. Her hands covered her face, shoulders shaking with sobs. The rain mixed with her tears, running down her cheeks like rivers of shame. Standing before her was a man who barely reached her shoulders when she stood. Staff Sergeant David Moore, 5'8", U.S. Navy SEAL, still dripping from the pool. His expression held no triumph, only quiet sadness. "I'm so sorry," Ayaka whispered, her voice breaking. "Your brother, you saved my brother, and I didn't even know." The gathered NATO Special Operations soldiers stood in shocked silence. They just witnessed something impossible. Japan's greatest underwater warrior, an Olympic medalist, undefeated combat instructor, had been utterly dominated by the quiet American she'd been mocking for days. But this story isn't about the victory. It's about what led to this moment, and the devastating truth that shattered an Olympic champion's pride. It all started 7 days earlier, when East met West in the most brutal underwater combat training program in the world. The NATO Pacific Underwater Warfare Training Center in Okinawa, Japan, built for the 2020 Olympics, now converted into the world's most advanced underwater combat facility. 3 Olympic-sized pools connected by underwater tunnels, with depths reaching 33 feet. Crystal clear water, state-of-the-art equipment, and the best special operations divers from 12 nations. Staff Sergeant David Moore arrived on a humid Monday morning. At 5'8" and 155 pounds, he looked more like a college student than a Navy SEAL. He wore simple Navy PT gear, carried a worn duffel bag, and spoke to no one. While other operators loudly compared deployments and showed off tattoos, David found a corner bench and quietly checked his dive equipment. "Attention!" The voice echoed across the pool deck. Captain Ayaka Sato strode to the center of the facility. Every eye turned to her. At 6'2", with the lean, powerful build of an Olympic swimmer, she commanded attention without trying. Her Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force uniform was immaculate, her posture perfect. "I am Captain Sato, your chief instructor for underwater combat operations. Some of you may know me from Rio 2016, bronze medal 200-meter freestyle." Murmurs of recognition rippled through the crowd. "After retiring from competitive swimming, I joined Japan's Special Operations Group. For the past 6 years, I've been undefeated in underwater combat training. This facility is my domain. The water is my element." Her gaze swept across the assembled operators: British SBS, German KSK, French Commandos, Australian SASR, and a handful of Americans. "For the next 2 weeks, you will learn why Japanese underwater warfare techniques are superior. You will be pushed beyond your limits. Many of you will fail." Her eyes paused on David, sitting quietly in the back. She noticed his small frame, his unremarkable appearance. "All operators, introduce yourselves. Country, unit, specialization." One by one they stood. Lieutenant James Cooper, British SBS, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. Sergeant Klaus Weber, German KSK, Combat Diving. Corporal Antoine Rousseau, French Naval Commandos, Underwater Navigation. Each introduction was met with nods of respect. These were elite warriors, and they sounded like it. Then came David's turn. He stood slowly. Staff Sergeant David Moore, U.S. Navy. Silence. Everyone waited for more. He said nothing else. Ayaka's eyebrow arched. "And your specialization, Sergeant?" "Diving, ma'am." "What unit?" "SEAL team." "Which SEAL team?" "I'd rather not say, ma'am." A few operators chuckled. Ayaka's jaw tightened. American arrogance. Or shame. Probably sent here to fill a quota. Day 5, evening. The team gathered in the facility's lounge, unwinding after a grueling training day. Beer and war stories filled the air. Ayaka entered in civilian attire, a fitted black dress accentuating her athletic frame, drawing every eye without effort. She walked straight to David, who sat alone in a corner nursing a Coke. "Staff Sergeant Moore?" He stood. Captain? I have a proposition, Ayaka said, her voice commanding. The room hushed, sensing something big. Tomorrow's free-form underwater combat evaluation. Any technique, no rules. First to surface loses. I'm aware, ma'am, David replied calmly. I want you as my demonstration partner. Again, ma'am? Ayaka's lips curved into a confident smile. Let's make it interesting. If, and this is purely hypothetical, as it's impossible, but if you beat me, I'll give you a special reward. A replica of my Olympic bronze medal. An honor earned, fit only for a true warrior. Weber whistled. You serious, Captain? Absolutely, Ayaka said coolly. But he won't win. I'm not worried. She turned to David. Do you dare, Sergeant? David's voice was steady. If I win, I want one thing. A public apology to every American service member you've disrespected this week. Ayaka's smile faltered. You're serious? Yes, ma'am. And if you lose, I'll apologize publicly for wasting your time. Ayaka extended her hand. Deal. 0900 tomorrow. Prepare to embarrass yourself one last time, Sergeant. David shook her hand, his grip firmer than she expected. See you tomorrow, ma'am. Morning came with unusual weather, dark clouds rolling in from the Pacific, turning the facility's skylights gray and ominous. Every operator assembled around the main pool. Word had spread. Even off-duty Japanese staff came to watch their captain prove Japanese superiority. Ayaka emerged in her Rio Olympic competition suit, the same suit she'd worn to win bronze. Navy blue with red accents, designed for maximum hydrodynamics, she looked like a weapon. David wore standard Navy PT swim trunks. Nothing special, nothing intimidating. Rules are simple, Ayaka announced to the crowd. 15 feet depth, underwater combat, any technique. First to surface loses, no time limit. They stood at opposite ends of the pool. Ready, Sergeant? David nodded once. Begin. They dove. Underwater, the world transformed. Sound muted, movement slowed, everything became about efficiency, about reading currents and body language. They met at the 15-foot mark. Ayaka attacked first, using her Olympic-trained speed to close distance. She attempted a wrist lock, standard Japanese jiu-jitsu adapted for water. David's arm slipped away like water through fingers. She frowned, tried again, this time targeting his neck for a choke. He wasn't there. Minimal movement, maximum effect, like fighting smoke. 30 seconds passed. Ayaka had attacked 6 times, hadn't landed once. She was faster, stronger, had better conditioning, but she couldn't touch him. 1 minute, her lungs started working harder. She'd expended significant energy. David looked like he was barely trying, moving with the water rather than against it. She changed tactics, using her reach advantage to keep him at distance while conserving oxygen. Smart, patient. But David wasn't attacking, just evading, studying, like he was waiting for something. 2 minutes. Ayaka's Olympic training kicked in. She controlled her breathing, rationed her oxygen. She'd won medals holding her breath longer than this. She could outlast him. David's eyes met hers underwater. Something in his gaze made her hesitate. He wasn't tired at all. 3 minutes, Ayaka's confidence started cracking. Her lungs burned. Her movements slowed slightly. She'd never been underwater this long during combat. The energy expenditure was enormous. David moved like he'd just started. 4 minutes, panic crept in. She needed air. Her lungs screamed. Her vision started to tunnel. David finally moved. Not aggressive, not brutal, simply efficient. He closed the distance in one fluid motion, moved behind her, and applied a textbook rear choke, the same move she'd used on him days before. But his version was different, controlled, professional. He could hurt her, but chose not to. He simply held the position. She had no air left to fight. Her body went limp. Immediately, David released the choke, wrapped an arm around her chest, and rocketed toward the surface.
His ascent was faster than should be possible without equipment. They broke the surface.
Ayaka gasped desperately for air, coughing, her face pale. David kept her afloat with one arm, his breathing barely elevated. "You okay?" His voice was calm, clinical. She couldn't answer, just breathed. After 30 seconds, he guided her to the pool edge. She clung to it, shaking. The gathered operators stood in stunned silence. David pulled himself out of the water in one smooth motion, not breathing hard, not exhausted, like he'd simply gone for a swim. Cooper was the first to speak. How is that possible? Weber stared. He destroyed her, completely. Ayaka finally caught her breath enough to look up. David stood above her, extending a hand to help her out. She took it numbly. Once on the deck, she couldn't meet his eyes. "Sergeant Moore, what are you?" "Just a SEAL, ma'am." "No." She shook her head. "No SEAL moves like that. I've trained with SEALs. You're something else." David said nothing. Rousseau stepped forward. "Your underwater control, I've never seen anything like it. Where did you train?" "Coronado, like I said." "Bullshit," Weber said, not unkindly. "That wasn't SEAL combatives. That was something different, more refined." David finally spoke, his voice quiet. "SEAL Team 6 has specialized training for specialized missions." The silence that followed was deafening. "Devgru? You're from devgru?" David didn't confirm or deny, just stood there, water dripping from his frame. Ayaka's knees gave out. She sat heavily on the pool deck. "Oh my God, I've been mocking. You're from SEAL Team 6. "Was, ma'am." I rotated out.
Cooper's eyes suddenly widened. "Wait, David Moore, Staff Sergeant David Moore." He pulled out his phone, frantically searching. "Holy shit! Holy shit!" "What?" Weber asked. "I thought the name sounded familiar." Cooper showed his phone screen. "Operation Pacific Shield. 3 years ago. Submarine rescue off the Korean peninsula." The operators crowded around the phone. "A South Korean submarine had a catastrophic failure during a joint exercise. Flooded compartments, 7 crew trapped. Depth 180 feet. Water temperature 40 degrees. All rescue assets were hours away." Ayaka looked up, dread growing in her stomach. Cooper continued. "One U.S. Navy SEAL volunteered to make emergency free dives. No equipment, just breath holds. He made 7 dives to 180 feet, 7 times in 40-degree water, brought up all 7 submariners, performed CPR on 3 of them. All survived." Weber's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. 180 feet on breath hold? Even once would be extraordinary. 7 times? "The Navy tried to give him the Navy Cross," Cooper said. "He refused, didn't want the attention. They gave it to him anyway, presented it in a closed ceremony, no media." He looked at David. "The article calls you the ghost of the deep, says you disappeared from public record after that, rotated into the most classified SEAL unit." Ayaka's hands trembled. 7 people. "You saved 7 people!" Her voice broke. "In water that cold? At that depth?" David's expression remained neutral. "They were drowning. Someone had to try." "The article says one of those submariners was..." Cooper paused, reading. "Lieutenant Commander Kenji Sato, Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, exchange officer on the Korean sub." Ayaka's face went white. Kenji Sato?" "Yes, ma'am. Says here he was one of the 3 requiring CPR. Critical condition. This SEAL performed CPR for 20 minutes until medics arrived." Ayaka stood shakily. "Kenji Sato is my younger brother."
The world seemed to stop. "Your brother?" David asked quietly. Ayaka's eyes filled with tears. He was on that submarine. He nearly died. When he came home, he couldn't stop talking about the American SEAL who saved his life. He said..." Her voice cracked. "He said an angel dove into the dark water 7 times. That's what he called you." His angel. She sank back to her knees, this time not from exhaustion, but from crushing shame. We searched for you, my whole family. We wanted to thank you, to honor you. But the U.S. Navy said your identity was classified. We wrote letters, we tried everything. Tears streamed down her face. And you were here, this whole time. And I treated you like... Her words dissolved into sobs. David knelt beside her. Captain Sato, look at me. She couldn't. Her shame was too great. Look at me, he repeated gently. She finally met his eyes. Your brother is a brave man. When I pulled him from that sub, he was barely conscious. But you know what he said to me? She shook her head. He said, tell my sister I'm sorry I worried her. Even nearly dead, he thought of you. That's the kind of man he is. And if you're anything like him, you'll get through this. But I mocked you. I humiliated you. I didn't even recognize the man who saved my brother's life. You didn't know. How could you? I should have respected you regardless. I judged you by your size, your appearance, your quiet nature. I assumed you were weak because you didn't boast. I looked at the assembled operators. I disrespected all of you. I let my pride, my Olympic medal make me think I was superior. David helped her stand. We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. An hour later, the entire facility assembled. Ayaka stood at the front, her eyes red but her posture straight. I owe you all an apology, she began, her voice steady despite her emotion. Especially Staff Sergeant Moore and all American service members present. She took a deep breath. I allowed my Olympic achievement to make me arrogant. I believed that because I won a medal, I was superior. I judged people by their size, their appearance, their quiet nature. I forgot the most important truth about warriors. She looked directly at David. True strength isn't about size or medals or volume. It's about character. It's about doing what's right when no one is watching. It's about saving lives when you could just as easily walk away. It's about humility in the face of praise and grace in the face of disrespect. Her voice broke slightly. Staff Sergeant Moore saved my brother's life. He dove into freezing water 7 times, risking his own life repeatedly for people he didn't know. And when I disrespected him, he said nothing. When I challenged him, he accepted with grace. When he defeated me, he pulled me to safety immediately. She bowed deeply, a traditional Japanese bow of profound respect. I am sorry. I am honored to have trained with you all. I am humbled to be in the presence of true warriors. When she straightened, David stepped forward. Captain Sato, you're a hell of an operator. Your Olympic training shows real discipline. This facility is incredible, and your instruction, when not directed at me, was excellent. A small smile. I think we can all learn from each other. He extended his hand. She took it, then pulled him into a hug. Thank you, she whispered, for my brother, for today, for the lesson. Thank you for your service, ma'am, and for your honesty. The assembled operators erupted in applause.